All right. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for popping on to this virtual event sponsored by the Friends of the Ashland Library. I've got Jeff DePaoli. He is coming from his That Halloween podcast. And with him is Ed Terebus from the Erebus Haunted Attraction. Thanks, guys, for coming here and chatting with us tonight. I'll let you guys take it away.
Thanks
Excellent.
for
Thank
having
you so much. Hey, Ed, thanks for being here. Before we even do anything else, I am just going to start this with a teaser for everybody to check out the kind of work that you do. Once I can get this video going, here we go. I was tempted. Tempted by your smile, and for a little while I was saying that I will be the one to change you, and you will be mine. I was tempted. What was never done before? Drop the curtain, drop the curtain. No one ever changes, no one. Farewell and goodbye. Buy tickets at hauntedpontiac.com. Beautiful. So that was a look at Erebus Haunted Attraction in Pontiac, Michigan. Ed is one of the co-owners along with his brother. Ed, thank you so much for being here today. Have you rested a little bit since October?
Rest a little bit, but we're trying to wrap up all the loose ends and start planning what we're going to do next year.
Do you take a break at all? I mean, I hope you take at least like a long weekend after the Halloween week.
I took 2 days.
Two
Hopefully
days.
we'll take a little bit of time come Christmas time, spend some time with the family.
Excellent. So Erebus has been around for quite a while. I know its origins came long before that name even. You're in Pontiac, Michigan, which is quite the area, it seems, for haunted attractions. When did that like really start to become an epicenter for haunted attractions?
Actually, we've been doing haunted houses. Well, we've been at Erebus for 25 years, but we did it for 20 years prior to that. We started in 1981. In 93, we started a paper called The Fear Finder. And that paper, we were drawing directions. My brother used to do a magazine, and my sister worked for him. She goes, "We got to come up with a Halloween paper." So doing that paper, we were actually became the Halloween tour guide and became the kind of like the capital of the haunted house industry over here. We had more haunted houses here than any place else. At one point in time, we had anywhere between 70 to 100 haunts within 50 miles of us. I mean, it was just jam packed with haunted attractions, and that was good. It was good because if everybody put $10,000 into it, you had $700,000 in marketing promoting Halloween and haunted houses. The bad part was if we went to the trade show and saw something really cool, we couldn't buy it because 25 other guys would have it.
Yeah, October year, even though you're in the same location and you don't have to tear it down, which is really, really nice. But your haunt is known nationwide for creating some really crazy special effects that have become part of haunt culture these days. But let's just start with the origins. As you said, started in 81. And how old were you when you were starting this? You and your brother started this. And let me rewind a little bit. Did it start as a haunt or did the magazine come
Uh,
first? Okay.
no. We started as the haunt. The magazine 93, the
Okay.
haunt started in
And you were how
81.
old at that point?
My brother was 28 and I was 18 graduating high school. I'm 61 now, so it's been a long time.
18 years old, starting, and it started as a professional haunt?
Yeah, well, I guess you could call it professional. It was 1,200 square feet. We actually pre-built the building in my brother's backyard. We set it up in front of Kmart's in a shopping center. We charged $1.50. I think we ended up losing probably, I think, $500 and decided that was a great idea because being we built the building in the parking lot, anytime it rained, we were in a low spot. The water would gather and customers were walking through 2, 3, 4 inches of water. Back then, nobody complained. We had fun, but we immediately moved it to trailers. So we went from $1.50 and 1,200 square feet to 2,800 square feet in $3. We doubled the price.
So when you said you were in like the Kmart parking lot, I just love to hear how these things grow because obviously you have this huge building now and this very impressive haunt, but I love to kind of like hear from the origins and how you start small and then have become what you have. And so when you were in that parking lot, what was it? Was it just flats and walls and stuff, or like the trailers hadn't come yet, so you were just building flats in a maze shape? Is that
We
correct?
actually built the perimeter walls, which were like 10 foot high. And then we put 8 foot walls up in the middle of that. And yeah, we just had flats and walls and we made a little maze inside there. It was mostly friends and family and relatives working inside of it. We had a blast, just absolutely loved it. And then we moved to the trailers, which were kind of neat because we could pre-build a lot of that stuff. And then we just kind of wheeled the trailers in, made it a castle facade. Then we just had to build a bridge between the trailers. We went from
Interesting.
4 trailers the first year or second year, added the fifth trailer the third year, and ran that unit for 13 years. And then we sold that to a church for $1 and ended up buying bigger trailers. The small ones were 12 by 50. The bigger ones were 14 foot wide by 70. And we actually had 10 of those units to make one big haunted house.
What do you mean when you say trailer? Like not a trailer home that a person would live in. Like what do you mean? Like a trailer
Yeah,
truck?
like a trailer home that somebody would live in.
And what would you do? Gut it?
You know what? The original ones we bought were residential trailers, and they had flash fires in them. So we picked them up for cheap, 400 or 500 bucks a piece. And a flash fire is like 2% fire damage, but like 98% smoke damage. I mean, even after we gutted it and pulled everything out of it and put our stuff in, 13 years later, every time it rains, you could still smell the smoke inside the building.
Hmm. So in those earlier days of, the Kmart parking lot and the trailers, is there a lesson that you would say if there's somebody watching who, wants to get into this industry and, can't start huge like you are currently? What's like a lesson you learned back then that you feel like I wish I had known that?
You know what? We were pretty fortunate the way we grew up small and kind of kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger as we went. And I would tell somebody not to start off huge. You don't want to start off where we're at. I mean, this was a big thing to bite off here. And the trailers really allowed us to be versatile because we could actually go into a high traffic shopping center parking lot and realistically you couldn't afford that property. Nobody's even to rent it. It just allowed you to get into a high area and do your attraction, get in and get out, and kind of get a good taste of it that way rather than once you buy a building you're committed forever.
Yeah. Now you work with your brother Jim, and were you the type of kid? I mean, there's what is it, a 10-year age gap between you two?
Yeah, correct.
So did you guys like work together on things when you were growing up, or was he just, I mean, it's a pretty big age gap. So you guys have very separate lives and then decided to work together? How did that come about?
It is a big age gap. There's actually 7 kids. So Jim's the first, then 3 girls, then me, and then 2 more girls. Um, Now we really didn't work together until the haunted house came about. And I was very, intrigued and interested. And I wasn't the partner from the get-go. I had to work, 7 years and, put my time in to gain that partnership. But we worked very good. We worked very well hand in hand together. We could almost read each other's, brains, and He had skill sets and then I had my own skill sets. So we kind of took care of different areas. So it worked out really good for both of us.
And what was the name of the haunt at that point? It wasn't called Erebus yet, correct?
Correct. It used to be called the Haunted Gallery, like the gallery that came to life.
Okay, so you had the haunted gallery, Kmart parking lot, then these trailers. And how long was it called the haunted gallery then?
Uh, Actually, 20 years.
Okay, so 20 years you have this business, the haunted gallery. It ran for 20 years, so I can only assume that it did well, it was successful. And then you decide to rebrand it into Erebus Haunted Attraction. So why the rebrand if you had such a successful business going?
You know what? We were kind of looking for something that was unique, almost like a Madonna name, just a one word, without haunted, massacre, slaughtered, that kind of stuff. How do you get that unique name? And we were building, we actually had the building, we were working on it, getting ready. And I happened to be reading a vampire novel. And in the vampire novel, they started talking about these underground caverns called Erebus, at the vampire's lair kind of thing. And I went, oh my God, what is that? I had no idea. I think I would have known that. Um, Webster's definition, Erebus is the darkness beneath the earth that the dead must pass to reach Hades. Greek mythology, it's the son of chaos and brother of night. And I went, oh my God. I went running to my brother Jim, go, Jim, look at this, look at this. And my father goes, you branded something for 20 years. You're going to change the name now? Yeah, look at it. It's just like our name, less the T. And he thought we were crazy for doing it. We did it. And I think it was a great thing that we did that. It was actually worked really well.
So that is pretty wild that this word Erebus existed, and your last name is Terebus, spelled the same way with simply a T at the beginning. I'm going to assume most people have that question for you. It's like, why did you drop the T, as opposed to calling it Terebus? But it really,
Sure.
it's not, it's complete two totally separate things, not related.
Correct.
That's wild. That is wild. Now, you speak of the building. That is it. That is a nice four-story building. I believe there's a basement level, correct?
Correct. We say it's 4 stories, three up and one down. And we'll take you all the way to the third floor and then take you all the way down to the basement and up and out. The cool thing is you go up the stairs, you never go down any stairs. We actually take you down a ramp. There's actually a half circle ramp that allows us to drive to every level and even up on the roof. So we can actually drive a high-low or a truck up on the roof.
Because was this a parking garage? Was that like a parking ramp that was
It
already
was a
there?
parking ramp, but the building was kind of unique. It was actually the first floor was retail. The second floor was a bowling alley bar and billiards. The third floor was offices on the outer perimeter with a little bit of parking, behind your office. The main parking lot was the roof, and a cab company ran out of the basement. So you had these vehicles coming and going, but yeah, you had all this other activity in there also.
So you find this building. How did this building come about for you? I assume you guys were on the market for a building, but
Well,
I love the, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
no. I said when we had the bigger trailers, the 14-foot by 70-foot wide ones. I mean, those were we had special permits, special times we could move them. We had to store those trailers. It was getting to be kind of a hassle and very, very expensive to store them, to move them, to do everything we had to do with them. Temporary electrical, temporary water, just everything. It was just a lot of work. We get, man, for all the money we spent, we could buy a building. And so we started looking, and we looked at this building, and it was never for sale. And when we looked at it, we looked up the tax record, and we knocked on the door, and we finally got hold of the guy, and we talked to him, and he wanted a lot more money than we thought the building was worth. And we ended up leaving that, walking away, went to another building, looked at a couple other buildings, came back about 4 years later just to kind of revisit it a little bit. And, the gentleman passed away, and the wife was looking to sell the building. I think we still bought it for a little more than it was valued at that point in time, but it was almost the perfect need for a haunted house. I mean, to be able to have that ramp in there to take you, because if you fall going up the stairs, you can catch yourself. If you fall going down the stairs, you're going to kill yourself. So And, in a haunted house, the stairs are it's always dark and dim and foggy. And so stairs are kind of a little troublesome, I think. Um, I mean, a lot of guys have them, but, if you want to have a nice steady flow and your actors are jumping out, you don't want them scaring anybody going down the stairs. So it kind of worked out really good for us. The building's over 100,000 square feet. We use approximately 50% of it for the haunt. It's just over a half-mile walk inside the building. 2005, in fact, well, let me back up. I have my kids make up number 24 and 25 for nieces and nephews. I got a whole bunch of nieces and nephews in there. And I buy them all gifts and presents, and you always put the batteries in there and playing. And I bought one of them, the Guinness Book of World's Record book. And I'm flipping through this book, and I'm looking, hey, in downtown Pontiac, we used to have the Silver Dome down here. The Silver Dome was the largest air-supported roof. There was a record there. And, wow, look at that. And I'm flipping. All of a sudden, I came across the world's largest walk-through haunted house. I went, oh, my God. And I'm looking at it, and, I'm reading it. It was the Haunted Hotel in Japan. So the next day, I immediately got my little measuring wheel, and I started wheeling my way through the haunted house. I'm going, Jim, we're 50 feet short of the world records, Really excited about that. But if you think about it, 50 feet doesn't seem very long, but it's 50 feet of walls, 50 feet of hallway, 50 feet of electrical, 50 feet of sprinkler system. So it's not going to be cheap to make 50 feet. It costs you a few bucks. But we ended up doing that. And we didn't tell anybody what we were doing. I think the paper came out on, my deadline was like the 25th of August, and we had Guinness Book out here on the 23rd of August, doing the measuring and all that good stuff. And we got the Guinness Book of World's Record, which was huge. We held that for 5 seasons, from 2005 to 2009. And we'll always have that. And at the time, our record was 2,189 linear feet. Erebus is now over 2,600 linear feet. So it's over a half-mile walk inside the building while things are coming at you, grabbing you, biting you, landing on top of you. And then we'll put you in a room, slam the door, fill it up 6 feet 6, bury you alive. How long can you hold your breath,
Wild. And, when you mentioned the process of buying this building and, doing the research, and you kind of lucked out a little bit. But one thing you skipped over is really the risk you and your brother took for this, which I love, just because, you guys truly believed in this. I mean, it helped that you had 20 years of a successful haunt business beforehand, but still huge risk that you took financially when you did this. Can you talk a bit about, what you did in order to secure this building?
Sure. You know what? The unfortunate part is, banks really didn't like the concept or the idea. They don't like it because it's not open all the time. We're just a seasonal. We're going to open up for 2 months and we're going to shut down for 10. They're not very keen on that idea. So to make this work, I actually sold my house. My brother Jim remortgaged his house. I lived in the building from 1998 to 2013. I still have a house here. The concept was kind of like the Vikings. The Vikings would sail across the ocean and burn their boats, and we either succeed or die. So that was our options, and and dying was not an option. So we were going to make this thing work one way or another.
How far from this location were you doing like the trailer thing and the Kmart thing? Was it all within I guess the question is, could you bring your audience along? I mean, you're changing your name, you're changing your location. Did you have to start from scratch, or could you count on some of that built-in audience already?
We were banking on it a little bit. It was probably a 20, 25-minute drive to get to this location. And I'll be honest, we worked on this haunt for 2 years, getting it ready. The building was vacant for 40 years when we got it. So
Wow.
when I say it was vacant, it was used as an indoor junkyard. There was no water. There was no electricity. There was no gas. There was nothing in there. The roof, the building was actually made to go up 2 more stories, and the Depression hit. in the 30s, and actually stopped building the building. But they were planning on continuing that construction, and they kind of pre-drilled all the holes in the roof. So, I mean, the little caps that they had over the holes were all came up, and every time it rained, the exit lobby and the by the ramp there'd be 3 or 4 inches of water on almost every floor. It was just it was a total disaster. We took to get to the roof so we could start patching it. So we took 110,000 pounds of stuff off the top of that roof. We were up there with bobcats and chisels and all kinds of stuff. It was a lot of work to get to where we're at today. And because of all that work, when we finally came to, we were running out of money. So we had to open up. And I'll be honest, when we opened it in 2000, we probably weren't at our best capacity. We just kind of we were desperate. We opened it.
In the Q&A. Don't put it in the chat. The chat I am not checking, but at the end, I'll leave some time in the Q&A. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in there. But Ed, for this time travel story, this started with Erebus, correct? This wasn't part of the Haunted Gallery prior?
Correct. You know what? We wanted to go a heavy theme with what we were doing. And we were trying to figure out how to do that, but not get locked into something, too much where, we'd get bored with it after a while. So like the first video you showed was pretty much Miss Patty's Meat Pies, taking you from the deli and showing you what's behind there. And the people actually go through the cattle corrals and they become the meat that's being processed. So the story is, the doctor built a time machine and he was successful at it. It worked. The problem was every time you put somebody into the time machine, the time period looked at those people as a virus and wiped them out. Hence all the haunted stuff coming at you. But obsessed with making this thing work, he put more and more people into the machine. Eventually, he ran out of people and ran out of money. And then had a brilliant idea. Disguised the time machine as a haunted house. Now he has an endless supply of human guinea pigs, and they also help finance the program. But with that storyline, that allows us to go from ancient Egypt to outer space, and it all makes sense. It all fits. So every time you pass a time portal, you're going into a different time section. So Erebus is equivalent to walking through 500 houses. There's 5 different themes.
Was there ever a choice to be made? Did you always know that you were going to make it one long haunted house, or did you consider, you have 4 floors, you could have done 4 haunts potentially? Was that ever part of the conversation for you?
You know what? That was 25 years ago. We had all kinds of ideas and concepts and theories. And do you do one continuous haunted house? Do you do 5 haunted houses? Do you have one haunted house with different pathways? That people could choose as they're going through. It's kind of ironic because I think people like doing everything. I think, the different pathway might have been kind of a neat concept,
Well, it would have been a true maze, right? Like that. I find it funny that a lot of times people call them haunted mazes. And I'm like, these aren't mazes at all. They're pathways. Like if there were mazes, it would just be a customer flow disaster, right? There'd be people stuck in there. I don't know about you, but I've done enough corn mazes to know that I suck at them and that I would get lost in the haunted house. So it is funny that I feel like the industry uses the term maze quite a bit, but it's never truly a maze. But you actually consider doing a maze.
You know what? It would still be a pathway. You just got to choose left or right.
Gotcha.
But it'd still be a one-way path because, because if you go, as soon as you go and put a dead end in somewhere, it turns into a backup nightmare. And that seems where the biggest problem we have or complaint that we have is people getting backed up. And you can never stop somebody from getting scared and running backwards or running forward and creating that backup. But we do our best. I mean, we actually have it. When you walk in, we have a 90-second show. And then you take, it's 2 of those shows equal the 3-minute show. And then the 3-minute show releases. And then we actually have, when we're running full capacity, we have 6 doors that open every 30 seconds. and now you're being decontaminated before you go into your first time portal. But it's all a timed mechanism to kind of keep the people moving fluently. We control the amount of doors opened, and we also control the length of doors that are, how much space between the doors. And you're trying to give everybody the best show you could possibly can, but sometimes, you got to speed it up just to get everybody through. Otherwise, everybody be here all night long.
Other than just like the line, what's a benefit to having like one long haunted maze as opposed, see, I just said the word maze, haunted house, as opposed to, five individuals or four individuals?
Probably keeping it streamlined. If you had 500 houses, that means you got 5 entries, 5 different tickets, just a whole different mechanism behind it. And then most of the times when people have the multiple entries, most people buy the whole 9 yards. So why
Yeah.
not do the whole show and go from there,
Yeah. So with this story, this time travel story, as you mentioned, it allows you to go to a lot of different places, a lot of different themes. And you're in this building year round. You have the privilege of not having to tear this down, but that doesn't mean that it remains the same every year. About how much changes from one Halloween season to the next?
We usually do about 20-25%. This last year, we changed the whole third floor. We went very nostalgic, jack-o'-lanterns. We did the boogeyman. And when you exit that section, there's a 8-foot chomping pumpkin eating you alive. So it was kind of neat, kind of fun. It's very different, very retro. In fact, even our T-shirts, are very nostalgic looking with a big jack-o'-lantern on them, and but if you look really close at the T-shirt, around the jack-o'-lantern is a clock, a Roman clock, and then around that is a compass, and then around that is some Viking jargon, and it's very very cool looking shirt, very not just a jack-o'-lantern, but there's more to it if you got to look a little closer.
Very cool. This next video doesn't have any sound, but I just want to play this for you because your haunt, has a lot of large scale props and puppets and stuff like that. And I'd love to talk a little bit about just building the haunt and uh, how you go about doing that. Do you outsource? Do you build in-house? You mentioned earlier you try to avoid the whole trade show circuit so that the stuff that's in your house is unique, correct?
We don't we go to the trade show every year. I love the trade show. You can't get, you can't get any better than being around like-minded people and sharing thoughts and ideas and stuff like that. But yes, because there were so many haunts, we were forced to innovate and build our own things. You know, there's a lot of things in many haunts that were created from us at Erebus here. I call it animatronic puppetry, which is, like what you're looking at right there is a big dinosaur head coming out and chomping on you. It's pneumatic, but it's manually driven, so you can kind of direct it at the people. Have you ever seen a swamp in a haunted house? Where the guys that created the swamp?
Yeah, so
Bottomless.
so I want to touch on these things that I know kind of started at your haunt. So the laser swamp is something that I probably saw for the first time, I don't know, 7 or 8 years ago, I think. How long ago did you all kind of create that? And can you describe what it is for folks who might not be familiar?
Well, you know what? God, it's been a little bit, and we keep kind of in fact we even revamped it this year to kind of make it a little better, a little more extravagant, a little cooler. One of my guys drew a picture of 3 guys walking through a swamp, and then we went, "That's pretty cool. Let's build a swamp." But then we had to sit down and think about it. What does a swamp consist of? When you're walking through a swamp, you have to create resistance. You can't just walk through it. The water holds you back a little bit. So we had to create something that would make you resistant to walking. We came up with bags of foam and bags of foam, balls and stuff, kind of like you had to push them to the side. Um, we eventually settled on airbags, which were not available at the trade show. So we're one of the first guys. We had the airbags in our haunted house, and next year they were at the trade show. Whether you saw them at our haunted house or not, I don't know. We could have came up with them at the same time, but I know they weren't there when we put this thing together. So we created the airbags to create the resistance. And then we put foam on the floor. And the foam on the floor would kind of get you that, like it's going to suck your shoe off like you're walking through the mud. But then it was too flat. So we put sticks and pipes underneath that. So it was kind of like branches underneath the mud. And then we had to figure out how to come up with how do you make it look like water now. So we took the laser show you would see at a rock concert that points up at the sky and you see like it makes like cloud looking effects. And we brought that down low, and even the fog made a difference. You needed fogs that made swirls, and the swirl looked like a green swirling muck. And that's how the swamp came to be. And it took us, you just got the 2-minute version, but it took us 4 months to figure out how to make that.
Yeah, the laser thing has done a lot. I actually haven't experienced it as detailed as you mentioned with like the floor squishing and stuff. So and the resistance. So that's pretty darn cool. I think pretty recently, this may be recent, maybe I'm mistaken, but the moving room was something that you had developed.
Moving room has been with us. This is our second year now.
Okay.
What we did is, if everybody's experienced that who drives, if you're sitting at a light and the car next to you rolls forward a little bit, it feels like you're going backwards. You slam on the brakes, your heart just drops because it feels like you're going backwards. That's a natural fear. That's a natural something. How do we recreate that? And we thought about that for, God, 5-6 years. How do we do that? And we made a little prototype. And what we created was a moving room. But the actor needs to move with the room when the walls move. That way your brain, well, the actor one needs to get your attention. So you're focused on him. So now your peripheral vision sees the walls moving, but also sees the guy moving with the walls. And your brain says, the walls don't move. That means I'm moving. And we can almost knock you backwards by not even touching you, just by your brain going, I'm moving, and you get that whoosh feeling. It's pretty cool. It's pretty effective. Again, depending on the actor and if he moves with the walls. I mean, I had a little kid in there and he looked at me and he looked at himself. He looked at me and he looked at himself. He goes, how'd you push me? How'd you push me? And he was just freaking out, it's pretty cool.
That's funny. The bottomless pit is another effect that y'all have created.
The bottomless pit came about, I'll be honest, one night we were at the trailer unit and it was just pouring rain and nobody came to the haunted house. And me and my brother were sitting there, and it was the end of the night. We started passing a little bottle back and forth, kind of like, just drowned in our sorrows because nobody came to the haunted house. We just lost a lot of money. And it stopped raining. It was time to shut it all down. We let all the actors go. And my brother's goofing around on the side of the building. I go, Jim, what are you doing? Let's shut it down. Ed, come on, look at this. And it was a puddle next to the building. And at the time, the trailers were kind of painted like a castle. So you had like the brick pattern. And we're looking at this puddle, and it reflected the side of the building, which it looked like there's a 20-foot hole, in the parking lot. And we were giggling like little girls going, oh my God, this is the coolest thing ever. It's a bottomless pit. And again, you just think, okay, how do you reproduce it? You put a mirror in the ground. But then we had to finesse it a little bit, because you put a mirror in the ground, that worked, but then you had to light it up so people could see that there's a hole. And anytime we added any light source in the room, it didn't matter where or how, you could see that was a mirror, and it just ruined the whole effect. We ended up figuring out that you had to use phosphorescent paint. So you actually have a light source with no light source. So you're painting a pattern, you're painting a ladder, you're doing something that, could be repeated down below from the reflection of the mirror. Add a little fog in there and it kind of blurs people's vision. That adds to the effect. And then naturally, if you put your foot in front of you, not knowing if there's a spot to put down on, you're going to keep your body weight back and your foot's going to be about 3 inches off the ground. and then you're going to go and touch the ground. You have to kind of like scooch down 3 inches. Now, if I take that floor and move it down 3/4 of an inch, when you go to touch, there's nothing there, and you'll freak yourself out. The original bottomless pit, we actually we connected that to what we called a compression wall. And we literally had you walk on the ledge, look into the hole, and then shoved you into the hole. It's a good concept. It's a good theory. Scared the hell out of a lot of people. The problem was, you ever walk down the stairs and think there's one more step and there's not, and you kind of jam your knee? We were jamming a couple knees a night, going, "Oh my God, well, what are we gonna do here?" So we altered that thing. That's been in the haunted house now for, God, 30 something years. And we
Wow.
went from the compression wall to nothing. The nothing didn't work very good. And now the wall is actually hinged at the bottom, and the top part leans forward and kind of pushes you into the hole a little bit. But if you're afraid of heights, you don't walk looking down. You put your front against the wall. So now you get your front against the wall, and that thing pushes you backwards, and you're forced to step back. I mean, you're definitely messing with people's phobias in that case.
Yeah, now my phobia is this next one. The whole being buried alive thing, claustrophobic here, don't love it. And you do a whole being buried alive. I've experienced something like this in a haunt. Personally, don't love it, but let's talk about it. The buried alive. How did you even come up with this concept and idea to do this?
Buried Alive actually came about at the trade show. I was talking to a fellow haunt guy, and we were talking about some ideas and thoughts. And, usually my brain's racing like 4 steps ahead. And we're talking about this idea and this concept. And all of a sudden, his idea took a left-hand turn. I'm going, no, 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 we got to go this way with it, And we talked about it and thought about it. And that one there, God, I bet you it was 6 to 8 years just thinking about it. We actually said, okay, well, how does it feel? So I bought a bunch of playpen balls. I screwed 4 pieces of plywood together and got up on a ladder and put a guy in there. And we just started filling it up. And he got up to his neck. He goes, "That's enough. That's enough." And the weird thing is, like at McDonald's with the playpen balls, if you're in there, you can swim. You can push them around and move them. But when they're in a confined box, however you are, they fill up the negative space, and then there's no place for them to go. You're locked in there. You can't move. It's a bizarre feeling. So we built several contraptions to make this work. And I had my second ex-fiance was with me at the time, and we built this contraption. I was getting ready to test it out, and I had a couple of my buddies there, and she decided she wanted to go into the unit. And at that point in time, we had a 60-horse blower trying to get the balls back on top to recycle it. Woo! This thing's loud as hell. You couldn't hear nothing. And I could hear her in there screaming a little bit. I'm thinking, she'll be okay. She'll be out in 2 minutes here, And I didn't realize she changed her mind. She doesn't want to be there anymore. She's thinking she might be claustrophobic. So anyways, couldn't hear her, filled it up, and I go to release the unit, and it got stuck, and it wouldn't release. So this thing's filled up 6 feet over their heads. It took about 4 minutes to get her out, and she came out, and she was white as a ghost, tears running down her face. And she's looking at me, and she goes, "You SOB, what are you smiling at?" I'm smiling ear to ear. I go, "Look, it works. You're freaking out." Hence to say my ex-fiance, Um, but
Yeah, those are definitely freaky.
yeah,
Hilarious.
we're on phase 3 now, and it's definitely we actually have 3 of them inside the haunted house. So we try to get everybody through there.
My gosh. Now, I know that in the past, I believe in your haunts, the actors used to touch the guests, which is kind of a big no-no these days. Is that correct?
It's not a no-no. There's no place that says we can't touch you. We did that, God, 35 years ago. And back then, you got a bunch of, young people working for you, and do they always follow the rules? And, and then you got guys with high testosterone, and you know, they might work their way on it, at the ankles and work their way up. And I had five sisters. So I would send my sisters through the haunted house, and, this guy was inappropriate, that guy was inappropriate, that guy was inappropriate. And we had to fire these guys and get them out of there. But it just didn't seem like a good idea. If it was just me or you or my right-hand man and somebody I could trust, you could do that. In fact, I just went to a haunted house this last weekend, and they were a touch haunted house. They pretty much touched your face and your head, and that's cool. But our concept was, I like the touching part, but just not by the humans. So we created things that will touch you, bite you, grab you, land on top of you, bury you alive. So we have the touching thing. It's just not done by a human. Sometimes a human might be controlling it, but it's not a human touching you.
So some of your larger puppets and such, yeah?
Correct. Oh yeah, we got the mutant gorilla will come out and grab your leg. The baby T-Rex will come out and bite you. The worm monster will come and get your ankles. We got just a whole bunch of things. We have the big green alien, the little red alien. So we got all kinds of things that will come out and get you.
Nice. Now, folks, just want to remind you, if you have any questions for Ed, go ahead and leave those in the Q&A, not the chat there. Now, Ed, you do offer something called Making the Monster, which is something completely, separate from the normal haunt experience. Can you talk a little bit about that and how that came about?
Yeah, Making of the Monster, we were trying to get people to engage with us a little more. We got to be, I think, people got thinking that we're too scary. Thinking, God, how can a haunted house be too scary? But I guess some people were thinking that way. We wanted to introduce them to what we do. So we came up with Making of the Monster. Making of the Monster was a walkthrough. We called it a walkthrough documentary. You come through the haunted house, we're going to turn the lights on, we're going to turn the sound on, and we installed 42 TV monitors, flat screen TVs throughout the haunt, talking about how we came up with the name and how we built the mutant gorilla and how we came up with the swamp and all these concepts and ideas. And you can kind of go through and kind of see how it is and maybe imagine how it might be with actors and go, hey, this isn't too bad. We can come do that. So we just did that on Saturdays. This year was just Saturday afternoon from 2 to 4. Just trying to, broaden our horizons with new people. But, I think when people are scared, they're scared. I mean, it doesn't matter what you do, they ain't coming. Like for us, we don't have kid rates. I don't give refunds. But my borderline seems like 12, 13 years is the age, but I've seen 5-year-olds make it. I've seen 25-year-olds pee themselves and faint. If a kid can watch a horror movie, he should be good to go. But if he can't watch a horror movie, don't torture him. Don't bring him here, man. Don't want to do that. In fact, we keep track of the wimps, the wetters, the pukers, the fainters. We average probably anywhere from 350 to 500 people that wimp out a year.
Wow.
We average about 75. The wetters, the pukers, and the fainters, we kind of group them all together. That's 98%, 95%, wetters. And that's a full-on wet, confirmed by management. Like hitting them with a flashlight. It's not a tinkle, man. You can see the pants they're soaked, man. But
Oh, man.
so we keep track of this year and since we've opened. So I think since we've opened, we've had over 10,000 people wimp out of this place.
Wow. What I love about the Making of the Monster is you mentioned the TV monitors and you have like videos talking about the build of the haunt and stuff. And to me, that just feels like a bit above and beyond what most are. There's a lot of haunts that do lights on tours and they'll, no actors in there, but they'll allow people to go through and kind of see what it's like without the actors. But I've never heard of one that really, has gone through the trouble of shooting video and creating production for that. So that's pretty cool. And I assume like these monitors are just hidden when the normal haunt is going, or are they part of the show?
You know what? Nope. they actually swing against the wall and you hide it. We shut them off and hide them. And then during the show, we swing them in. Actually, my 14-year-old son would come here with me, and he's the guy that turned on all the monitors to make sure they were running.
Pretty wild. So can we talk a little bit about the process of changing the show each year? You said around 20 or 25% of it will change from year to year. You're kind of in that space right now. I assume your mind's always percolating. You were probably thinking of things during this past Halloween season that you're like, for next year we got to do this. But can you talk a little bit about that? Like what's going on from November to August?
Yeah. We definitely constantly thinking about it. What can we do differently? How can we go and engage things? You know, what's a dramatic difference? What has been running for a while that we need to kind of freshen up and, you know, get rid of and put something new in that area. You're always thinking about it, and we always want to change things. And if we're changing one section, we might upgrade another area, you know, in the process of that. You know, like I said, you know, we redid the whole third floor, but we kind of upgraded the swamp this year a little bit too. But it's a never-ending process. We go from, I think we had 356 actors on payroll this year. And that's running anywhere from 70 to 90 a night inside the haunt. You know, and then we have another probably, you know, 25, 35 other people that are, you know, ticket takers and security and, you know, flow control and maintenance guys and all that good stuff.
About how many of you are doing this year round? Because obviously all those people you just mentioned, those are seasonal.
There's probably, well, 8 to 10 of us.
Okay.
That stick out year round.
And you are building a lot of this stuff yourself. Like you're installing, you're creating all of this content.
Yes, we do 90% of it. You know, sometimes I might go to a trade show and I might buy parts and pieces, but then I kind of Frankenstein it together myself to make it different and unique. So I guarantee you, if you come to Erebus, you're going to see something you haven't seen in another haunt. You're going to experience things in a different way. And sometimes you might see the original thing that was created by us and put out there by others, you know?
Now, a lot of haunts, you know, they try to expand business by doing off-season things. Do you do any of like the halfway to Halloweens or the Krampus Christmas sort of things, or are you pretty much just open for Halloween season?
Our building is not heated, so the whole Christmas and Valentine's Day thing does not work very well up here because it's like really cold. We have done halfway to Halloween. We have done the zombie apocalypse, you know, run through with the laser guns. You know, that was kind of fun. You know, so every now and then we'll do the halfway to Halloween stuff just for fun. You know, open up for a weekend.
What do you think has allowed you guys to be successful for so long? I mean, you've been doing this for a very long time in an industry that is quite competitive.
It's a competitive industry, but Halloween is very unique. Halloween people love Halloween. You know, I call Halloween a very selfish holiday. You don't have to buy anybody a present. You don't have to go visit anybody. You get to dress up and be whoever and whatever you want to be. And you know what? And nobody will criticize, condemn, or complain about it. You can dress up like a toilet, and people go, "Man, that's a great looking toilet." I mean, where else can you do that? You can't. And it allows people to come on out. In fact, I mean, it allows you to come out of your shell. I had an actor one time, and he was super quiet, super polite, and he was just the nicest guy in the world. And he'd sit there and just be quiet. And then one day he goes, "Ed, can I do the chainsaw guy?" I'm thinking, "Oh, I need a guy with energy there, you know." And I don't know what kind of demons he had inside him and what he was building up. I gave that guy my chainsaw. He was my MVM, my most valuable monster for 5 years. I mean, that guy was just great. Ironically, I just had one of the local schools do a tour here, and who was part of the acting team, you know, the instructors, it was Ryan. He said he came to the haunt. He got to be, you know, that was his turn on to being, you know, into the theater business. And he just loved it. And he pursued it after he left us, ended up being a teacher. which that makes me happy.
It's really funny. Yeah, it is funny the minute somebody puts a mask on or makeup or something, like it really does transform you, like the way that the confidence. It's a weird shift.
We
But
had a guy do a brain study here, and they were monitoring people as they were going through the house, but they were also monitoring the actors. They actually put a thing on their head and checked out their brain waves before they put the makeup on, and then after they got in makeup and costume, and it changed. They actually changed their whole thinking philosophy once they got in costume and makeup. They were able to become something different and something they, unique or wanted to be. I mean, how many people are shy and held back where, you can beat over here? We had a couple people that worked here that were amputees. One guy was missing his arm, and I always noticed he was always pulling his sleeve down and hiding it. And we asked, heck, can we put you in a butcher scene and bloody it up a little bit? He goes, yeah, let's do it. Let's do it. And that was the first time in his life he could take that hand and shove it in your face and just, ah. And by the time he left here at the end of the season, he wasn't pulling his sleeve down anymore. It was therapeutic. It was actually kind of cool to see him build his confidence up, and he walked out of here proud rather than trying to hide that, So
actually,
there's a lot of benefits to it. It's very, very, the people working here might come from all over the place, but by the time they're done, it's a big family.
it's actually a really cool story about the amputee. I love that. Now, folks, you can learn more about Erebus Haunted Attraction at hauntedpontiac.com. You can learn more about me at thepodcastnetwork.com. Check out that Halloween podcast. And Ed, thank you so much for coming on the show today. I really appreciate it. And it sounds like quite the haunt. I certainly hope I can make it out there sometime. And 4 floors. How long does it take to go through? Like 45 minutes?
It depends how fast you're running. Yeah, 35 to 45 minutes. Depends how fast you're running.
That's great. Can I skip the buried alive part or no?
Sure.
You're like, sure, we'll take you out the exit and we'll add you to that list of 10,000. That's hilarious. Oh man. Ed, thank you so much. And folks, thanks for tuning in.
I
And
appreciate you having me.
absolutely. I think the library might tune back in. Here we go. You're on mute.
All right, we've got it. All right, awesome. That was amazing. Thank you so much to the both of you for being here tonight. That was incredible.
Thank you. Stay spooky all year long.
Yeah. Have a good night, everyone.